The tip of the iceberg was when a single father who we surveyed, after we surveyed him, his loan and how much he was making, he proceeded to offer my male colleague, his youngest daughter, you like her, you take her. We looked at each other and we were confused and horrified. They're women that now we've trained and they're earning like 300 times what they would be earning. It's not just impacting one woman, it's impacting the whole family. And what's powerful about it is it cuts off the generational cycle of human trafficking. I asked her, like, why is your granddaughter in our program? She's like, well, I want her to have the opportunities like I didn't have. And that was just like an eye-opening moment to me.
So, Diana, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
I just met you through Helen Fu.
Yes.
Stellar, a shout out to Stellar. They do amazing work. So if you have a nonprofit or a startup and they do everything. So a founder can just be a founder. They're like a fractional co-founder, really. And she's been awesome.
Helen's great, love her.
And they do it also for nonprofits. So this podcast is about interviewing people who are innovative in the problems that matter most, the social impact industry. And I believe that's the next forefront of real innovation. We've figured out how to, we've got a supercomputer in our pockets while my phone is recording us. There's probably more computing power in here than put the man on the moon. But yet, during that same period of time of tremendous innovation, yet human trafficking has increased, homelessness has increased. So this podcast is about interviewing amazing people like you that are innovating in those areas. So what's going to happen with this is a video podcast. We're going to it'll be released on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube.
Okay.
YouTube is the largest platform for podcasts.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's surprising to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, because you think of it as video.
Yeah.
People listen to podcasts, and most podcasts are video podcasts now because they just record it. It's the number one. So everywhere podcasts found, we're also going to create nice little shorts out of it. And we're going to release those on social media. And we're going to partner with you and our other guests, and we'll give those to you. Hope that'll be an asset, and you can tag them, and we can help us build our audience, and hopefully that will help build, your brand as well. So, Diana, you lead Nomi Network, right? So introduce yourself to me and our audience.
Yeah, so great to be here. Thanks for having me. And it is so important for the third sector, social impact sector, to really innovate.
You called it the third sector.
The third, yeah.
What's the first two? That's the first time I've heard that term, but I love it.
So you have for-profit, traditional corporations, and you have government.
Okay.
And then the third sector, impact and nonprofit. Okay. So I'm Diana Mao, co-founder of Nomi Network, and Nomi is named after an 8-year-old survivor who I met in Cambodia in 2008. She was trafficked by her stepfather, and I met her at an underage shelter with over 100 girls as young as 5 years old. And so when my co-founder and I met her, we were really touched by her story, but more so her resilience and her eagerness to engage us, to give us hugs, to show us her rabbits at the shelter. And it left a lasting impression on me. So I decided to name the organization after her.
So that trip, it sounds like that trip was life-changing for you.
It was, yeah. Bringing me back to graduate school at NYU. I was a summer fellow for a microfinance bank, one of the largest globally. And so we were charged with interviewing microfinance clients and really assessing the impact of microfinance on their lives, but also seeing if their businesses were actually growing and sort of making recommendations for the microfinance clients. And across the board, I noticed that in that portfolio of 300 clients, many were still making about 75 cents to $1.50 a day, feeding a family of 4 or 5. And the tip of the iceberg was when a single father who we surveyed near the Thai border in a very rural area in Cambodia, after we surveyed him, his loan and how much he was making, he proceeded to offer my male colleague, his youngest daughter, you like her, you take her. And we looked at each other and we were confused and horrified. And then I put two and two together because in the city where we were staying in the hotel, I noticed a lot of older, more apparently foreign men gallivanting with really young girls, as young as 8 years old, on the street. And so back then it was very apparent in the city capital of Cambodia.
Wow. So you went there and a nonprofit was helping this guy. He had micro loans and you realized he was just hustling the system and well, without throwing condemnation at anyone because they're in desperate straits. He's also selling his daughter, and that's another way of generating income.
Yeah, I would say he was definitely hustling, but at the same time, his wife had died from, I believe it was malaria. So he had several children. They were in a hut with all sleeping on the floor. And I learned that he actually was not investing the microfinance loan into his business. He was paying back another loan, local loan, that was 36% interest rate. So he was, in essence, predatory lending, what do you want to call it?
He was the
He was
victim
trying
of
to survive.
predatory lending.
Yeah, he was trying to survive, trying to feed his kids, and obviously it's wrong. At the same time, I saw him through that lens of what he had because we had to ask questions like, "What do you have? How much do you eat a day?" All of that, So we were, in essence, try to calculate what they spend on a daily basis, and it was basically nothing because he had nothing.
Wow. So you're in graduate school at the time, and then that directed you to launch Naomi.
Yeah, I was in
Nomi.
Know Me, yeah. Know Me is synonymous for know me, know my story, know my success. So, you know, her name represents that to us and our support.
So tell us, let's move forward.
Yes.
We can fill in the blanks
Yeah.
later. So what do you do right now?
So right now we provide safe employment pathways and training for survivors and women at risk of human trafficking to secure jobs or start their own businesses.
Okay.
And we do it globally in India, Cambodia, and the United States.
Okay. Great. What parts of the US?
So in the US, we're relatively new. We have two training sites, one in Dallas and one in Houston. And in Dallas, we work with Dallas County juvenile detention centers with girls that are 12 to 17. Many of them are there for nonviolent crimes and have been prostituted or trafficked. So we provide them with training and education and career paths as well. And so in the US, it looks a lot different than India and Cambodia. In the US, um, clients and also those that are trafficked that are youth, they typically are, under the care of CPS, aging out of foster care, homeless youth, justice impacted youth. Those are the individuals that are highly prone to human trafficking.
Okay. So yeah, fill in the blanks. Tell me the story. You have this epiphany. Did you immediately start launch this organization or what happened next?
Yeah, so I came back, finished my master's at NYU, and
What year was this?
I finished in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I couldn't shake that experience I had in Cambodia. So when I finished
What
grad
was your, like,
school,
track had been before? Like, if you hadn't gone into the nonprofit sector, what trajectory were you on?
I would have been a consultant. So I my background is economics and accounting. So I
Okay.
worked for accounting firm, and then actually after graduate school, I didn't immediately start Nomi Network. I worked for a consulting firm, and my side hustle was getting Nomi Network off the ground.
Okay.
My volunteer sweat equity, sweat labor,
Had to make any money.
yeah, free. And I recruited like 20 of my friends at the time in New York that were with like Goldman Sachs or Ralph Lauren. They're all professionals. And so nights and weekends, I would host them at my apartment. I lived at Wall Street. They would come over, eat pizza on Fridays, and basically help start Nomi Network from
So
that.
you were in a network. Like, if you had chosen to take that path, you were in this you would have had quite a, you know, financially promising, prosperous future, but instead you're choosing impact.
Yeah, it was at the time. I was kind of torn because I knew Nomi had a lot of demand. All the nonprofits we were working with, unfortunately, did not have like the workforce side. So they were shelters in Cambodia, like the IJMs, the big nonprofits. And so across the board, they actually wanted to work with us to distribute their products, enhance their products, train their women so that they can create more higher value products. And so that's what we did initially. Because of that demand, we were able to successfully actually export a lot of the products from the shelter system that had a manufacturing arm to Sephora, to Walmart. And then we got to a point where
So you're saying you're helping shelters
Mhm.
uh,
That's how we started.
make products,
Mhm.
and you're marketing those products for them to create a revenue
Yeah.
stream. I love it.
Yeah. So
Oh,
at
that's
this
so
time,
cool.
yeah. So
It's
at
like the opposite of the, like Justin Dillon.
just so you yeah.
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 He's great. He's a friend of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. It
You know,
actually was
bringing
amazing.
exposure to all the, the slavery footprint, the
Right.
website they created, and bringing exposure to all the slavery that's in the manufacturing process of the tools, of the toys, tools, stuff,
Yeah.
product we buy.
Right.
You guys are turning that around and actually helping the victims get their goods
Mhm.
to market. Okay.
Yeah. So we did that, and meanwhile, we also provided them with training and upskilling so that they can create higher value products, products that are, have design elements, more branding. And then when we got orders for like laptop cases from Walmart.com, e-commerce, um, really there needed to be like an up leveling of skills. So we worked with the shelter. And mind you, at that time, we were
So
all
originally
volunteers.
okay, you're all volunteers, and originally you're just
Yeah.
helping them
Yeah.
sell more stuff for a little bit more.
And grow their
Grow their
workforce from
business.
23 to 80 women, just one
I really like
month.
this approach. Rather than coming in with an educational approach, you're coming in with a hands-on and value add. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're bringing high-level consultancy from all of your friends who are, worth, $100 an hour or more,
Yeah.
and you're bringing it and making it available to these small businesses that
Right.
would have no access to that at all. Okay, I love it.
Shelters. There were business.
Very
They
innovative.
had a social enterprise.
Innovation.
Yeah. So that was really the premise because I saw that the single father that I met in the village, like in that village, there was like amazing cherry wood carvings, like beautiful carvings, and they sold it for like $2. And I was just shocked at I could buy and I bought a bunch of these like business card holders for $2. I bought like 50 and brought it back and I gave it away to my friends. And I was like, what if so I met with my friends at Ralph Lauren, at Macy's, the designers. I'm like, what if we can turn this into like even a clutch, like this piece that's like really neat, well designed, well made. That's a $2. Can we turn it into a button for a clutch? So that was my question, like how can we do that? And then recruited my co-founder. At the time, she was with Saks Fifth Avenue, had a very lucrative career there. She quit her job. She was our first semi-free labor. We raised money to send her to Cambodia for like a year. And then she started working. Yes, and she's paying to work basically. Paying to work with the shelter. And we really did elevate the products and it was amazing. And we were still volunteer network. And so I reached a point where I was super burnt out. My career in consulting was taking off. I was traveling a lot. I was spending my nights and weekends, sometimes 2 a.m. with my co-founders, like on GChat, like working on stuff. And I
G-Chat.
GChat, like Gmail chat,
Okay.
you know, Google Mail.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that was what we were using. And it was a point where I was like, I have no life. I'm in my 20s, early 20s, and no life, I'm going to church, that's it. And then I was like, I just like kind of did this thing. I was like, God, if you want me to continue, just make a way, like, because I can't do both anymore. And so that moment, it was 2011, we got a State Department grant for $200,000, not much. So the U.S. State Department has a trafficking, global trafficking office, and I had written the grant, like very scrappy. I wrote it, and
When was this?
2011, we got awarded the grant. And so this grant is basically allowing us to go to India. So to take our model in Cambodia, which was all volunteer, by the way, to India to start a training program in Bihar, which is some diplomats and other locals have said Bihar, that state, the conditions are equivalent to Afghanistan in terms of corruption, political law, violence against women, human trafficking, cross-border trafficking between Nepal. And so, got the grant, and so my co-founder already quit her job. I quit my job. My third co-founder was still in her job. And then we hired staff. We basically did a call out and try to hire a program manager in India, and then basically moved out of my apartment, sold my stuff, and moved to India for 3 months.
You moved to India.
Yeah,
Wow.
3 months, and my co-founder lived there for 3 years. So she was the one, developing the curriculum, working with the women directly. I was there helping set up the partnerships, meet with the Department of State, and then, after 3 months, I came back and focused more on fundraising and raising more support and awareness.
Wow. So you've been going strong since then.
I mean, I would say there are moments, there's on highs and lows in running an organization. We're reaching our 15-year mark. Actually, this year we're at our 15-year mark, and there's been many wins, many losses, but overall, um, I'm just what keeps me going is knowing that the women we serve, like, they have that economic opportunity and they could change the trajectory of their children's lives. So in India, we have 35 training sites in 4 states.
So you started out with one, now you've grown. Wow. Okay.
In Cambodia, we have 5 training sites in the more, highly prevalent areas of Cambodia and rural Cambodia. And then I mentioned in the US, we have 2 training sites.
So tell me some of the stories. You mean,
Yeah, so, in the early years, we focused really on training and really the life skills part. And so we would go to the red light community and share about our programs. It was very, very grassroots. It was basically us and a few other staff members. And since then, we've evolved. We have 125 staff. But I was sitting with in a local brothel with a woman who looked really aged, and she was a madam. And I sat with her, heard her story, and, found out she was trafficked when she was not trafficked. I mean, she was in the business. She in her mind, she wouldn't say she was trafficked, right? Since she was, like,
yeah.
12 years old, she didn't go to school, she's not educated. But then she started talking about her granddaughter and how her granddaughter's in our program. And and then basically, I asked her, like, "Why is your granddaughter in our program?" She's like, "Well, I want her to have the opportunities like I didn't have. Like, I want her to have
Is
value for
Cambodia
herself."
is in
This is in India,
India.
And so, it was just such a moment of, like, her, like and then she's like, "Yeah, I'm also sending other women or other girls in my basically my brothel to your program." And that was just, like, an eye-opening moment to me, that,
Wow.
like, for her, like, she knows, like, that it was really redemptive, but at the same time, like, it's like, I want, you know, it more for her, and we continue to work with women, um
But what spoke to you so much is that she's still in the industry. She maybe
Yeah,
doesn't yet at the place where she has any hope for herself
right,
or doesn't see a future for
right,
herself other than what she's in.
right,
But she is undermining her own business by sending not only her daughter, her granddaughter,
daughter.
but others
Yeah,
out of her industry
right,
into
right,
your wow.
yeah, and, there are women that now we've trained and they're earning, like, 300 times what they would be earning. We've helped women save
So you've trained
migrants.
them and they're earning. This is an important point because one of the things is prostitution, human trafficking
Mhm.
is very lucrative. They can earn a lot of money. And you're saying they go through your program and they can earn 300 times what they could do otherwise?
No, so for the women that I'm talking about, like, they're not necessarily trafficked yet.
Yeah, okay.
So they have parents or their moms or they're in the brothel system. They live in communities adjacent to the brothels, local brothels, or they, have other forms of exploitation.
But they go through yours and they have an opportunity and they make a lot more than they would
Mm,
as girls being sold in the brothels.
right,
Oh, that's
exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, so in communities where there are no opportunities, like very rural, Um, Local economy is like a bakery here or, a rickshaw repair store there. Those are the areas in the northern part. We help them safely migrate. We have a partnership with India's largest factory. And so they have hundreds of factories. They employ like 600,000 employees in India. And so we help them safely, our staff help them safely migrate from the north to the south, get them set up in an apartment or in housing, and then help them um, retain the job in essence. Anything they need, holistic support. Most cases, what is really interesting is that the women or the 19-year-old, I would say, opportunity youth, they send like 50% of their wages back to their families. They help siblings go to school. So the next generation, like their younger siblings that were out of school at the third grade,
Wow, that's
they're
cool.
actually now in school, back in school. So it's not just impacting one woman, it's impacting the whole family. And what's powerful about it is it cuts off the generational cycle of human trafficking, poverty as well. Poverty is one of the key drivers of human trafficking from the supply side.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, how have how did you grow? Like, your initial grant was funded by the State Department. Are you still funded by the State Department, or where?
Yeah, we are not currently funded. The State Department's not prioritize, so they prioritize different countries, and at the time they were prioritizing India, but now they're not. So we do have support from the Department of Justice for our U.S. program. So we have a grant for our Dallas program. We work with the
So, how do you help the India? How do you fund India? As private
Yeah, so
missions,
it's
or?
private, and also, so last year our revenue was $5.1 million. So we fundraise primarily through corporate foundations, institutional foundations, individual supporters as well that really care about the cause, most importantly, care about the impact. We're
Do you have
very
much of a support base here in the Bay Area?
not huge. We have supporters here. We have engaged the tech community in terms of awareness. If an
I'm
invite.
thinking of the Indian expatriate
Mhm.
population, like
Yeah,
there's so many of them here, and they're all very, professionals. I mean,
yeah,
Indians are a huge immigrant
yeah,
success story in the US. Like, I mean, we're a country of immigrants,
yeah. That's,
That'd be interesting. So,
yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, we're as a nonprofit, that's what you do fundraise. So definitely,
do
like,
you have family here? You're from Southern
yeah,
California,
I'm from
right?
Southern California. I'm
Uh,
from Pasadena.
So how soon before you're expanded into California?
Um, So our next 10 states that we're planning to expand in, they're areas with high need and low resources. So actually, we're choosing more to focus on the South.
Okay.
So we have the reason we chose Houston is according to national data, Houston ranks as number one in terms of instances of human trafficking. Dallas, I believe, I don't know, the rankings kind of shift year by year. I think the last when we started in Dallas was like third.
Okay.
And so that's how we select regions where we work. Why we're in India is because of the global population of about 50 million people in slavery. It's estimated that like half, like 20 million-ish, are in India. So that's why we're heavily focused on the 35 sites in India. And then the US, we were invited by Dallas County because they saw our work globally. And a few of our supporters thought that it was very applicable, our work, in terms of the innovation and the approach to also bring it into the US, specifically in that
So
system.
you're still in Cambodia.
Mhm.
Um, Cambodia is a very, very interesting area, like they're one of that whole region there is got a bright future as far as technology and,
Mhm.
as China gets older,
Mhm.
they haven't had enough babies, these other countries are,
Emerging.
biting into their market share of stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah. Are you
definitely.
any other countries you're looking at expanding into?
Um, yeah, we are actually looking, we have a whole kind of index of countries. We're looking at Thailand, Vietnam, but right now we're really focused on India because we have rich experience, we have rich partnerships, and so there's just such a high volume of need there that we decided to kind of pause the global expansion and really drill
I like
down
that.
more
I like
on mainly the 2 countries we're in, the US and then also India.
Okay, so you're looking at expanding in those 2 markets as opposed to opening up
Yeah,
new
yeah.
countries.
And Cambodia, which Cambodia is a small country, so, we'll expand there, but it won't nearly be, um, I would say, the size of India.
So tell me more about how your program actually works. What are they're getting job training, right?
Yeah.
What type of job training are they getting?
So we have contextualized curriculum that starts with life skills. It's contextualized by region. So in India, it's even contextualized according to state because every state is different. India is like a country of many countries. So the life skills, it's trauma informed. It builds women's self confidence, critical thinking, problem solving. The soft skills, basic.
So you start with the soft skills, and how early are you partnering with the schools that are already there? Are you opening up
Mhm.
your own schools?
Yeah. So our motto is in the startup stages, we directly operate. So in the US, in Cambodia, we directly operate. So we do all 3 phases, which is life skills, technical skills, job placement, and retention. Those are the 4 phases across the board in all of our programs.
And you're targeting what ages?
So we have the women that are 18 and over. And then we have adolescent girl programming, which is less focused on it's like a pathway towards the women's workforce. It's more adolescent girl curriculum around child rights, particularly in India, knowing about human trafficking and also prevention from being trafficked. And then life skills as well as helping them on an educational path that leads to a career. So re-enrollment in school.
So adolescence, you have adolescence, and then you have your core training is for women 18 and older?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So they run concurrently. And so in India, we actually work in partnerships. We have a pretty rigorous process of
So in the startup, you run them in the startup phase, you run them yourself so you can control your brand and make sure you have the brand. But then
operations.
when you're stronger, now you can partner with others. Okay.
Right, right. So that's how we scaled drastically in India so quickly. We find local HIV clinics, local schools, local churches, local organizations that are working in where the social services route. And then we basically share our model with them. We share our curriculum, we fund them, we work with them, we monitor the process of job placement and retention. So we do, in essence, a lot of the heavy lifting, but we use their site because their site is already a community destination. So the local clinic,
Wow.
local school, community already knows.
So that's a real win-win because you're embedding in there and you're
Yeah.
bringing them, and you're basically you're hiring them, you're sending your people to train them, or okay.
We hire, we have job descriptions. So if there's no one in their respective organization or orbit that meets the requirements, then we work together to find the right person. The trainers, the program managers, the counselors, and those key roles.
Wow, that's really really cool. So my, m how much do you need to grow to solve the problem in India? I know that's a huge question. That's just
That's a huge question, because I feel honestly like the issue of human trafficking is like a moving target, and data is showing that the numbers seem to be growing, particularly with the new forms of trafficking and the acceleration. I know we're in San Francisco of tech and AI. You can literally click a button and a trafficker can reach 400,000 of their target audience. And even if 1% bite to that text message, to that social media, inquiry, whatever, that's still 1% of like huge amount that they could reach. So we're seeing that even in the Golden Triangle, which is Burma, um, Thailand, that region. What's concerning is that more educated, more literate individuals are being trafficked. Like recently on BBC, there was an article of a Chinese male actor that was answering a modeling ad going to Thailand for a job, and he got trafficked into a call center that basically is used to scam mainly elderly, romance scams, all the scams that now are basically call center scams, right? That you and I probably received a text message, you owe this toll amount, or hey, you want to make a 100,000 on Bitcoin or wherever it is. So I'm seeing this trend is shifting, and as people are desperate for jobs globally, that it's not your traditional sense of like who's being trafficked, right? Like the Nomis of the world in rural Cambodia or
So,
regions we work.
so
It's actually ubiquitous.
does Nomi only help women?
Yes, we focus on women and girls. That's our expertise. Men and women and boys and girls are very different.
Yeah, yeah.
And so we really focus our approach because um, 68% of those that are sex trafficked are girls and women. And so we do, though, do a lot of community work where there's outreach and secondary benefits for boys, but that they're not our focus, like core programming.
Cool.
Mm.
Cool. Great. What's next?
Yeah, the next, we're in the process of the growth phase. So we're looking and reflecting on our previous 3-year strategic plan, which is sunsetting this year. And we're in the process of strategic planning, which is really fun for any co-founder or founder for the next 3 years. And it's really exciting. We're looking at technology, how to incorporate, um, the 4 phases of what we do, where we can automate, where we can insert um, AI, machine, human type of learning.
I have a friend who's working on, in fact, Milpitas High School is a Christian school. They're redefining themselves entirely around AI, and they're going to go heavy into AI. And he's created a tool that basically the AI would create the curriculum,
Mhm.
and it can create any curriculum over any any outcome you want. You teach you anything, and then custom make it for the student.
Oh, wow.
So now the role, this is a trend that's happening. One of the things that's unique is they're not using the AI in a void.
Yeah,
They feel the teachers are very, very important, but now the teacher's role is going to turn to more of a tutor, and the AI would create the curriculum, and now the teacher would walk with the student through that curriculum.
that's brilliant. That's really
Yeah.
brilliant because everyone learns at a different pace, different experiences, different ways of learning. I love that ability to customize curriculum. Yeah, that would be really interesting to explore for sure.
He's in a startup phase, but
Yeah.
it'd be interesting. I'd love to introduce you to him.
Yeah, please do. I
Yeah.
love that.
I mean, to me, I'm overall an optimist,
Right.
and I believe AI, Web3 technology, I think they are tools that will help us, solve these big
Yeah.
problems. Like AI, the key is how can we use AI to help your efforts.
Yeah.
But the flip side of it, your efforts and others like you, how can we use these, who are, technology is generally, morally neutral,
Yeah.
you know, like a nuclear power can create,
Right.
clean energy that,
Right.
but it can also be used to blow,
Right. Exactly.
things up, and it depends on how we use them.
Mhm.
But regardless of that, regardless of where it ends up, the disruption that's coming with AI, and the problem is going to get worse before it gets better, you know?
Right. Because nonprofits like Nomi, typically, we don't have the ability really to innovate because funding is really tight, right? Like we don't have R&D. What nonprofit can you think of has R&D? Or what nonprofit can you think of has a CTO? I'm thinking like I was talking to one of our advisors, like how can I get a fractional CEO, like a very small fraction? 'Cause
CTO?
CTO, chief tech, because a lot of that, even as we build things, we've been very scrappy. I mean, we use LMS, we use digital, during COVID, we had digital curriculum, but scrappy in the sense that, like, we're not technologists, but we know it's important to accelerate the
How
impact.
long are you in the Bay Area for?
I'm here until Friday.
Okay, that idea of I mean, that's the whole reason of the community we're building here at the House of Web3. We hard SF, like the lunch that you had another appointment, couldn't make it to. We just had a room filled with technologists and social impact people. And we heard from a guy who's running he's helping the homeless and turning them around. And he's, doing it for very cheap. And we all figure out how we can do it together. Like, what I've found is in the like what you're doing is very innovative. You guys are very scrappy. You figure things out. But the difference in a for-profit startup world, like the scrappiness is very real. Figuring out how to do stuff without a budget, that's what all the startups do. But in the startups, there's a pot of gold at the end.
Right.
So, if they reach certain metrics, now there's a mechanism to scale the best practices.
Yeah.
That is what's lacking in the nonprofit world. And I would prefer we get away from the whole nonprofit, even as a term, because it's just different vehicles.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it would help my family dynamic for sure, because when I told my father that I quit my job in consulting to start a nonprofit in Chinese, it means no profit, like no money.
Well,
No money. And so literally, like, that in essence, I think in itself, for like an immigrant family, right? That
yeah.
you kind of, yeah, that's why not many people are actually in this sector. And I think there is a way to find another exciting thing we're doing is earned revenue. So we have some things that we're doing that we think is sellable. So our curriculum, we have certain assets that we think there's a market for it among like two key stakeholders. So next year we're actually doing I'm mainly leading that initiative of looking at seeing, using the MVP test, the minimal viable product, to see if we can actually sell that. And once then that's actually giving an earned revenue stream back into the nonprofit or back into the social impact.
Well, this is this is the issue that is the dream, the problem that Innovate is trying to solve. One, getting nonprofits or social impact leaders on the front lines to collaborate together, which, like they're very, very ready. That's already happening. But we're going to have to sell the issue to society. Like what I think where you're going to get CTOs, or a fractional CTO, it needs to come out of partnerships with the organizations, partnerships with the big for-profit organizations, like if we can sell to them, they want to make social impact. Well, partner with us rather than trying to do it yourself. And let's, really go deep in those partnerships, and then find if we can view the social impact as an industry, as opposed to like a nonprofit is a vehicle, but like a university, Stanford is a nonprofit, but they obviously innovate there and they are critical to the whole innovation culture that makes Silicon Valley, Silicon Valley. We as society need to zoom out and realize we all have a vested interest in this. We can't just let the professionals who are very good at it, like Diana, go out there and solve human trafficking. We're never going to solve it that way. But if we can shift the partnership and say, yes, Diana's really, really good at what she does. Vanessa Russell, have you met Vanessa yet?
Which organization?
Love Never Fails.
Yeah. I was at her event, I think, when I was here before COVID. She had a fundraising event.
Yeah. Okay. She's a very good friend of mine. Yeah. I talked her into letting me be on her board, so we partner together a lot. Like, you guys are really, really good at what you're doing, but we can't view you as, okay, they're going to go, solve the problem. We all need to come around and work together and create that ecosystem and decide what type of future do we want as a society. And then when everyone's working together, partnering in the same direction, that's when the magic can really happen.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I I feel like I've joined a lot of local coalitions like anti-trafficking in Houston, for example. My organization is part of it. Um, and a lot of times, I think what's missing is the technology because we're all like preaching to the same choir. We're a coalition of other, let's just say, social impact organization,
Yeah.
right? But we're not like we each do our own like innovating. We're like sharing information, sharing resources, focus on our clients, but our clients are in urgent crisis needs. So we're coordinated to solve those urgent crisis needs, but not necessarily changing the system, building the ecosystem, like coming together
Agree.
to be even more effective and more efficient, leveraging resources like that. Like having been a part of many coalitions, like the New York Mayor's Coalition when I was living in New York of anti-trafficking, like that's what I don't see. And that's where I think Innovate can really come in, is kind of like looking at it as how tech companies look at it, right? You look at it through design thinking lens. You look at it
Exactly. Design
through
system thinking lens.
so you bring the stakeholders together. You're probably already doing this, but like from the more design thinking lens, um, I think that would be more productive and powerful.
Yeah, and having enough bandwidth to zoom out and say we're very good at addressing crisis.
Mhm.
And often one of the challenges is crisis often it's a lot easier to raise for crisis. Like
Right.
one of Vanessa's issues is it's a lot easier to raise money for rescuing, which is desperately needed. I mean, this is like you need to do that. But it's far more effective if you can go to a community that's vulnerable and strengthen that community so they're no longer vulnerable.
Mhm.
You go upstream and now there's no rescue ever needed.
Right.
Like that's a better allocation of resources.
Right.
But that's not as sexy a sell and not as easy to raise funds for.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, it's about educating the funders and bringing them into it. But again, it's about zooming out to have, okay, if we're good at addressing the crisis, we need to keep that, but we also need to go and say, what's happening that's causing this crisis?
Mhm.
And how can we intervene?
Mhm.
And again, this is something that has to be multidisciplinary. It can't just be, the social impact people. It can't just be the government.
Mhm.
The faith community can do a lot of good. They can be, but even then, if they think they can do it their own, on themselves, they're not going to make much impact.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if they're willing to get out and partner with others, they can make a tremendous amount of impact. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think one struggle, I don't know, even larger nonprofits that are much higher, in revenue, I think the struggle is that for some nonprofits, like, I do think you need a dedicated person to do this collaboration, because you have to move things forward, right? Like, you're not just, like, brainstorming, you're actually working together. So, like, many nonprofits like mine, like, we have people wearing multiple hats, you know? And so collaboration, like attending a meeting, once a month is feasible, right? But let's say you have multiple working sessions, all that, that actually requires, in my opinion, like capital.
yeah, it does.
Requires a donor, investor, however you want to raise the capital to come in, be like, this is the change I want to also be bought in to the vision and to support that collaboration because nonprofits will literally crash if like, you know what I mean? Like the amount of design thing, amount that requires,
No.
I really think that there needs to be more resources as well dedicated to that effort in order for it to move forward.
Absolutely. We'll just cut that little part out and that's why people need to donate to Innovate, because no, because
I
you're,
like
we'll cut that out and make it its own standalone piece and say, yes, listen to Diana and give us money so that we can do that. I mean, that's what we're trying to model right here in the Bay Area. This is where I'm at, and this is where we need to. And I mean, for the nonprofits, we have to learn to have the relationships.
Mhm.
If we're going to solve the problem, it's not just any one intervention, it's holistic. Do they need
Yeah.
job training? Yes. Do they need funding? Yes. Do they need housing? Yes.
Mhm.
Do they need food? Yes.
Mhm.
What they really need is all of those, and they need them in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And we've got to collaborate. So there's a need for a holistic thing, but also you're not going to become best in class if you're doing everything.
Yes, exactly.
So but we get siloed. So we're really good at doing one part, but navigating the whole system, like particularly in our social services in the US, across our social services is not an integrated system. It's not even a divided system. It is a deeply fragmented system.
Yeah. It's so interesting what you're saying because best in class, right? Like we actually have a metric in our organization, like from like 5 years ago. How do we become best in class? And we have metrics of that, like quality of service, all of that. I think for social impact, I notice with for me now, like when I support organizations, I actually look for like a focus and a niche and KPIs. What I've traditionally been involved with, from microfinance, other large organizations in the past, and they have
This is
so
what
many
you look
programs,
for
right?
with someone you want to partner with?
Who I fund, who I donate to.
Okay,
Who
so
I
this is, so
sorry,
you're
I'm taking
selling
it to
your own.
personally,
Okay.
who I donate to. I look for organizations that want to be best in class and focus on a segment because they can't do everything. So when an organization is doing water, food, all of that, to me, I kind of put on my economics hat. I'm like, this is like a massive scope creep. Like this is like very much like, yes, they're doing a lot, right? But the question really for me, which is a personal opinion, is like, are they doing all of that really well? Because how can you actually do all of that? And for me, what I'm getting at is that for this model, I do think the groups that you select to be a part of it, they should have a nation focus and not be trying to do everything. Like many nonprofits that I supported in the past,
Yeah, that's
like
there's always a counter argument,
right,
and it's because the other thing is like, okay, like Vanessa Russell, and I talk about this all the time, you know, like for her to provide really good care to the victims of human trafficking, she's had to evolve through the power of saying yes, of opening up doors to provide services that maybe they weren't good at. Or, I mean, that's even why it's called Love Never Fails. Like, Love Never Fails was out of her desperation, responding because her heart broke for the victims of human trafficking who she had a relationship with, and she was just trying to help, and she felt completely unequipped. And then the spirit came to her and reassured her and says, just keep loving. Love never fails. And that's how she gave it the name. But it's like, you have to provide holistic care because you're caring for a person. You're not just meeting one. So it's like, I mean, it's both and. You have to be good. And I think if you're best in class in one area, but if that's all you do, you better have relationships with others. Are we measuring the right metrics?
I think it's more a question of scale, and I do agree. There's a continuum of care for survivors, and a lot of times, if they're providing shelter, counseling, all these other services could be added. But in my observation, like those organizations really stay at a certain size, like particularly with beds, 50, 25, like in our country. In terms of like if you're looking at a system change, scale, like I think what you're talking about, I do think you need a core focus because otherwise, where do you have that scale, right?
Hmm.
So it is yes and, but I'm saying it depends on what your approach is. And small organizations are effective, but I'm saying under the model, if you're looking at more systemic, holistic change and moving the needle to your first question around how do we move, do you feel like you're making, you're going to make a huge difference in this 50 million person problem? To me, I'm like, well, my small part, and if we were to have an ecosystem, then I believe we can contribute because we do have scale
Yeah.
in our core area. We've served 23,000 women and youth since 2012, just providing workforce. So that to me is actually scale in our sector, but in the grand scheme of workforce, it's not really scale. when I look at just workforce development, governmental workforce, all of that, the numbers are vastly higher. So 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 again, I think in the anti-trafficking movement, we really do need to work together more effectively. If we were to look at this issue, and then it touches upon CPS, it touches upon child welfare, it touches upon these other issue
Well,
areas.
here's a premise. Maybe this can help you with your next 3 years. This is something I've been saying, Vanessa and I have been talking about a lot because she's the expert in my life about human trafficking. I know how to play basketball. Okay.
That's a funner thing to do.
Well, I played basketball in prison, and that is incredibly effective, just showing up, playing basketball. But I've been doing it for 18 years. The nonprofit I've been involved in has been doing it for 28 years, Prison Sports Ministries in San Quentin, and it's magical. It's magical. Just how a little thing like basketball builds community and restores lives.
Definitely.
But okay, is what I think for you. Okay, you have built a skill, and you guys call it, you're doing workforce development for victims of, or no, for those who are vulnerable for human trafficking.
And victims.
Victims and survivors and victims.
Yeah.
Okay, but they don't have to be trafficked first to get into your programs. They just have to be at high risk.
They have indicators of high risk that we have.
Okay. You do a thing that's called trauma-informed training in the technical world.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what you do is you take workforce development that would be similar in any world, in any place, but you're very good at doing it for those who are trauma-informed. Okay. And then you're culturally sensitive, which is related to the trauma-informed. That's essentially what you do, right?
Yeah, essentially, but we actually own the result of job placement and income increase.
Oh, that's super cool.
That's why. So we are successful. We measure our success by how many job placements and what is their income growth.
That's so important.
From the baseline.
So that's where our educational system, particularly our higher educational system in the U.S., needs to be completely transformed. It's so vulnerable because our higher universities do not own the outcome of placing them. So it's quite common for, the best and the brightest to graduate from Berkeley, for example, or wherever, with $200,000 in student debt and not get employed in their field.
Yeah.
And they're on the hook for their student loans. Yep. But this massive institution with hundreds of millions of dollars in an endowment is not on the track at all. It's not on the hook at all.
Right.
For their outcome. There's the student loans. So that's a major flaw in the system. Okay.
Right. And so for me, what boils down to is like, I don't care if millions of women and girls are trained. I care if they have jobs and income opportunity, because I know at the end of the day, the education, the learning is not going to stop them, is not going to be able to feed their families. It's not going to get them out of a desperate situation.
Yeah, that education has to turn into a job that's revenue.
They need the income that's sustainable, so that's what's key.
It's brilliant. You've solved that. You have a core strength. I believe that what you've just described is the future of education. I believe that's pretty similar to the problem that, using an example of a group that scaled and is transforming education, of Grand Canyon University. Are you familiar with them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Heard of them.
They're transforming higher education. They were a Christian liberal arts school about to go out of business. Yeah. But they have done a much better job of keeping the cost of higher education down low. Their students graduate within 3 years. And then they have done a much better job of connecting the training in higher education with the job outcome. Okay.
That's great. Yeah, I heard about it through a donor, actually.
And that's why they are growing. They are huge. They're expanding, they're growing like crazy. Their campus is, they went from this tiny little campus to this huge campus, and they are one of the leaders in the whole online education and all that. Yeah. Okay. The future is now, like, our educational system, it's not like it's letting down 20%. it's letting down 80% and
Right.
serving a small minority.
Right.
When you look at trauma-informed, that is that's everyone. That's the vast majority of people. I mean,
Yeah.
COVID highlighted that.
Right.
Like our own young people,
Right.
are now dealing with massive issues of mental health,
Right.
poor mental health, overcoming their own trauma. And it turns out you don't have to be in Cambodia or India to have deep-seated trauma.
Wow.
And whether you're from East Oakland, like I interviewed one of Vanessa's amazing young leaders, Terry L. Bell. She was trafficked while on a track scholarship. She's from a Bay Area
Wow.
home, so she's
Yeah.
middle class home, which is way upper middle
Yeah.
class anywhere else. But
Yeah.
that's
And the Bay Area, everything's up.
the Bay Area. So she
Right.
was not a poor Bay Area home. Her family, a family of faith, her mother and father were pastors.
Wow.
She was adopted at a young age from the foster care system, but adopted very young. So, that's not a lot of indicators there.
Right.
She had her own triggers. She was deeply insecure and did not feel rich, because she didn't have Gucci bags and all that. But she's at ASU on a track scholarship. So she's an elite athlete.
Yeah.
And she was targeted. Okay.
Wow.
What I'm saying is, I believe there is a real niche, and I feel you and also Vanessa with what she's doing with IT Biz Academy, which is very similar in, not as developed. In fact, maybe we can learn from you. Maybe we can partner just by learning from you all. Okay, that'd be super cool. Okay.
Yeah.
We're doing a great job at training them, and we're small enough that we're able to track them with their work placement, but we need to grow in the area of work placement and grow in that area. But they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job. I feel that's the future of education. And I believe that is what's going to disrupt education.
Right. Because it's market driven.
And
It is in the sense also that these like Grand Canyon College will link up. They would have incentive to link up with the future of AI. Where are the jobs of AI? Like I talk to a lot of my friends are like AI luminaries, right? Like it's hard to say, but we do know kind of from books that I've read and people I've talked to, the displacements, like what are the roles that likely will not exist anymore? We do know that, right? So the educational sector really needs to know that, hey, medical coding, probably not anymore, right? You need to be more advanced and you
yes,
need to partner
displacement.
with machine learning. And that's the type of role, right? So the education system has a lag of this information. And I think with what you're saying, I see your vision. I do believe that when you link that to outcomes, that they will have incentive then to actually
And
talk to
learn
that
the trauma-informed piece, because
right.
everyone's
And
trauma-informed.
learn the trauma-infused piece.
That's going to be so, I mean, it's super important now. Like, I mean, they're even studying that with the Gen Zs
Right.
in the workforce. Like,
Right.
you have to think of them differently because, they're,
Yeah.
it really is
Yeah.
trauma
Yeah.
that they
Yeah.
need to overcome.
Yeah.
And we need to be far more sensitive for that.
Right.
And if we can get and I know it's about figuring out the economics and the business model, but I know there has to be money there because one, status quo costs so much.
Yeah.
And you're saving, like for India, I don't know, the wealth you're creating for the country is out
We're
there.
counting like at the level of like areas that are vastly ignored, rural communities in the state of Bihar, state of Odisha, state of West Bengal, state of Jharkhand, all states with high cases of human trafficking. We could actually calculate the ROI of training costs versus lifetime wages based on their first wage.
Can you share some of those stats? Do you have them off the top of your head, or?
No, I mean, I have the income, so like 300% growth, or they're earning $250 a month in a region that typically makes, $2 a day, more or less. I haven't, we do have that data. I just don't have it off the top of my head. But
Do you have any model for your graduates who are now making 300% of what they would make others? If you thought of them now tithing, giving 10% back into your system and to fund the next generation, I'm sure they'd be very, very open and willing to do that. Is that?
Actually, it's funny you mentioned that. That's something that we're building into our model for the future. Yeah. The idea of giving back, whether it's like you're mentoring another trainee or you're providing 10% into a pool to bring up more trainees. So yeah, we've thought of it. We haven't implemented it yet, but it's a great model.
What about the Indian government? Are they open to funding you at all? Are you getting any funding from them?
Currently we're not. We do partner with state governments. So we have
Indian state
a
government.
state government. Each state is like a governor, right? In different states. So we partner more with the state, and they offer us like non-financial resources in terms of the partnership. So it's a little bit different in terms of resources. But yeah, it's a potential in the future for sure. We are exploring that as well. And another thing I want to say is that the private sector, what's really exciting is that India's largest factory, they told us that our trainees have exponentially, I can't quote the exact percentage right now, but higher retention in terms of their workers and are more likely to be promoted. And what's incredible is that our trainees come from backgrounds in terms of educational level, like lower, and also literacy level, lot lower, and no formal job experience in the private sector.
Wow, okay. Is the private sector now, does that largest manufacturer fund your programs at
They
all?
do, yeah. They
I'll
funded us to actually set up a technical training school in a region that they don't have factories in as a pipeline in. So yeah, so you know how I said we provide life skills, technical skills? So they funded us to set up a technical school, training school, where they supplied us with all the equipment in a very rural area.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. It's like the same way, like, like similar, analogously, the tech firms will give huge grants and donations to Stanford and the other higher because they need that level of education. Plus, things will be discovered in an academic setting that will then translate into the marketplace, but would never be discovered in-house. Okay. Okay. But they need this level of expertise for them to exist and to keep being Apple. They need those level of employees. Okay. We need to make that same sale that, listen, you also need to invest in those who are disenfranchised from the system.
Right. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This has been very, very interesting. I mean, this is educational for me, and I look forward to partnering with you further. I mean, you're a wealth. I have a question. What about the initial idea of bringing these amazing, items that were in Cambodia, I guess,
Yeah.
to market? Do you guys still do that?
We don't do that anymore. We sunset the social enterprise aspect of that because we found ourselves we're not Tom Shoes or feedback. We really were focused on the training side. And we thought it
Okay.
would be more effective if we didn't create the job, but actually leverage the private sector to place women into jobs. That would open up the door for opportunities in different sectors beyond manufacturing. So now we place women into home health care, government jobs, construction, all different sectors.
So, but is there still a business model there? Like, it seems like somebody else needs to come alongside, reach out
We've
to you.
sunset. Yeah, there is. We have some capacity of manufacturing. We have wonderful shelters and nonprofits we work with in Cambodia. And
That could
frankly,
manufacture.
yeah, so there is room. If
So you
anyone,
just need a partnership.
we need
You
a
need
partnership with strong brand that has the ability to control demand and not expect like fast fashion because the skill level is just not there. The capital in terms of equipment is not there. So it's not like a huge factory production. It's more small scale.
Sounds cool. Sounds very interesting. Well, thank you so much. So how can people reach you?
So they can reach me through my website, nominetwork.org, and my email if anyone's interested as well. I'm on LinkedIn as well.
So, and you need people, one, you need funders. So if anyone wants to make an impact in India,
Yes.
reach out to you, or Cambodia, or Texas,
U.S.
or the U.S. Yes, also relationships.
Yeah.
You know, manufacturer or other. You know,
employer. Yeah, any employers out there.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to continuing watching this journey, and say hi to Helen for me.
I will.
All right. Thank you so much.